everyone, it's Lori and welcome to the channel. Today we are doing an edit along, so you can edit along with me. In the description of the video is a link to the 2 images that we are going to work with. I hope you have fun editing these images. Just remember, please do not share these images on social media or use them in any way. They're just a gift for you to practice with. They are my personal images. Okay, let's jump in and get started. So this is a first dahlia bloom of the season in my garden. I was so excited to see it this week and thought I would share it with you guys. So first thing that I'm going to do to get started, I am here in Lightroom. Now I am in the Lightroom version, not Lightroom Classic, but the editing works exactly the same. Okay, first thing I want to do with this guy is I actually want to flip the image around. I rarely do this, and I had to shoot it this way because of how it's positioned in the garden, but I do think this image is going to look better flipped. So we're going to go up to Photo, Flip Horizontal. So again, up to Photo in your menu at the top, Flip Horizontal, and that's going to give us a whole different story. So I really think for this image, it works. It's definitely much more natural to see the image in this way. It looked a little awkward before. Okay, the next thing I want to do is go ahead and work on my crop. So I'm going to go up to the crop tool, and what I'm envisioning is just scooting this over so that the center of the flower is right here on the rule of thirds. And then I still want to leave all this negative space, but we're going to deal with these distracting leaves in just a minute. So I think that looks nice. That's how I would crop this image. Okay, so we've got now our leading lines, we have some space next to our flower, and we have this beautiful negative space to the right. Okay, now our flower actually looks pretty good. I don't have, it was just beautiful light, and so there's really not a whole lot we have to do to the actual flower. So what I want to work on next is these distracting elements, and there's a couple ways we can tackle those. First, let's go ahead and try the AI Remove tool. So I'm going to come in and just work on removing one at a time. So I'm using the new kind of eraser, and we're just going to go over it one at a time. Now, I could also take this into Photoshop, and do some cloning or some other ways, but I really want to try to edit this just in Lightroom because I know many of you only use Lightroom. You're not Photoshop fans. So I'm just going to go over it a couple times. I want you to see it just takes a little bit, and we're getting there. It is going to blend this background really natural and beautiful. We're going to do some more things to the background, so this does not have to be perfect. We can still have some texture, and it's not going to look weird because our background has so much light and colors in it anyway. So I'm just continuing to use this to kind of go over parts of the image, a little bit right there. And I think that's pretty much got it, maybe just a little bit more below. So I'll pause here for you to catch up if you are editing along with me. You just want to keep going over any sections and use that content aware, that eraser tool. Now I am not using generative AI. I could have, but I didn't feel like it's needed. The remove tool works just as good on this type of image, and it is just, it's actually a little bit faster. So you could use the generative if you like it. I don't think that it was necessary in this situation. Now I'm also going to come up to this left corner and use the remove tool here as well. Again, we may have to go over it a couple times. Now on the right side, the AI tool may have removed all of it at one time. But again, I am a little old-fashioned and I still like the traditional one. Oops, that one did not work. So in this situation, let's try the generative AI, and let's come in and see what it does in that corner. just going to let that generate. It did okay. It's still not doing what I want. So let's try the heel. It's funny. Sometimes certain parts of your image will just be stuck. Yeah, it's not liking that corner. So we'll work on that a different way. Okay, so I love all this brightness, but I really want to give it a softer, ethereal look in the background. So let's go to our mask and select background. Now I'm going to show the overlay just so that we can see it. And it did a really good job. Now it left out our stems, but I think that's going to be okay. We can always change it. So I'm going to scroll down now and I want to reduce the clarity, which is going to reduce it in our background. I'm also going to reduce the texture. I want our background to look really soft. We could even add a little bit of dehaze, just a tiny bit. So that is -8. I did -75 on clarity and -77 on texture. So you can see all of that. I am going to do some noise reduction on the background because that's also going to make it very soft. So I did +68 on noise reduction. So again, that's just bringing all that softness. Now I'm also going to go ahead and lower the highlights just a little bit. So -50-ish. That's just going to bring those down. And I'm going to play with the exposure. I like it bright, so I think I'm just going to leave exposure alone. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all I would do for this image. We do have that little blue corner. I'm just going to leave that alone. Let's go back though to our basics, and we could also think about our colors. So there's a lot of aqua blue in the background. You could enhance that if you wanted to. I like it right where it is. I'm going to leave it at 0. You also could desaturate the greens a little bit if those are bothering you. Maybe like -10 just for a little bit. And then if you want to enhance the magenta, make it even darker, maybe a +20, 25 on that magenta. So let's look at our before. There's our before. Well, before we of course had it flipped, and now we have our after image. So again, before and after. Now the petals on this image were so beautiful. I don't think it needs anything else, but I think just that cleanup and softening of our background was a nice enhancement. Okay, let's jump to image number 2. So this one's a little different. This was a flat lay image that I shot. So the first thing we need to do is go up to photo and we need to rotate this image. I'm going to rotate to the right so that it is in the right position. Now next, you have to decide if you want to crop this or not. Now we could go to the crop tool, and there's a couple ways that I would crop this. One would be I would just bring this down to the edge, bring this edge over to match the other edge, and then bring this one up as well. Let's see how that looks. Okay, we got to do a little bit more on this edge. So you could do something like that so you still have some grass in the corners. You could also come in tighter, but you could also leave the handles if you think that that makes it a little more interesting. Sometimes there are flat lay scenes like this, but I do think bringing this corner in to match is really important. So making sure that you're balanced there. So I think we'll leave it like that for now, and we can come back to our crop later. So the first thing that I noticed on this is the highlights. I'm going to go ahead and bring my highlights down overall, which really helps my flower. The next thing I want to do is I do want to do a background mask. And let's look at the overlay. Great, it did just the grass area. And what I want to do is darken that exposure. I just want to darken that grass a little bit. So I'm doing -56 just to bring that down a little bit. We could also bring down the highlights. So I brought those down -46. Sorry about that update, guys. I'll have to do that when we're done. All right, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and in the center here, let's go ahead and do a mask, and let's do an objects. What I want to do is select the flowers. And we'll see how good it does. Let's do our overlay. Whoops. Okay, perfect. Look how well it did. All right, so what I want to do is I'm actually going to take this mask and I'm going to invert it, because what I want is everything else. So I really want everything in the inside of this. So now what I'm going to do is darken that exposure. There we go. Now I don't need the grass. So what I can do is subtract, and I'm going to do a color range, and I'm going to come over and select the grass. And there we go. It took that off. So what I basically did was I wanted to darken this container, but I needed to protect my flowers. And unfortunately it selected the grass. So we can just get that removed. Easy, easy. All right. So I'll pause here for just a second. Let me review what we just did. So I first added the mask of the flowers. Then I inverted it. So there's an invert option. Then because it selected everything, I subtracted the color range. So I just added that additional mask to it. Okay, so now that we've got that section done, what I want to do is work on our flowers a little bit. And so I'm going to create a new mask. I'm going to do objects, and I just want to select this yellow dahlia, which was the center of the show. And there it is. And I want to bring down the highlights. She was just a little too bright. The sun was shining on her. So we'll bring those down just a little bit, but I am going to saturate her just a little bit more. All right, so I think that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's go back to our basics panel. And I do want to play with my colors. So there was some beautiful purple in here. So I'm just going to saturate that. There's some blue. We're going to saturate those colors. A little bit of orange. I don't think there's any red. And maybe a little magenta. I just want to brighten all of those up. And then I'm going to go to luminance, and I want to take the purple and just brighten that. And maybe the magenta. We could even brighten the blues. And then the luminance of the grass and the greens, I'm just going to bring that down, which is going to darken it. So playing with that luminance. And we could also reduce the luminance on the yellow because I still thought it was a little bit bright. I'm going to go back to saturation. I'm also going to bring the color of that yellow down. I think it's beautiful, but it's just a little bit too harsh for the rest of the image. Okay, so now you've got a decision to make. We could actually crop this so that it's just our flowers. And I think that's where I'm leaning. Even though we did all this work to the grass, you do have this copy of the image. You could save this out. But I think in the long run, I'm going to come in and maybe just crop this and bring it in so that it just, it looks like maybe it's on this tin. But I think I want to just tell the story of these flowers. So that's one way to do it. We just use that as a background. The other would be, you could do a half circle. So just kind of playing with it. Sometimes what still life photographers will do is they'll come in. Let's bring this side. Just kind of play with it like that. There's all kinds of crop options that you could do. You could leave the top. So we could bring it back down. I think what I'm going to do is reset it. Let's just reset it completely. There we go. We reset it, and you could decide. Maybe you bring it right to the edge of the handles, or bring it in like we talked about before. So whatever you feel like works, I'll leave that up to you for your image of this. There's another option, but maybe the handles are better. So I don't know. You guys leave in the comments what you do with this image. I'd love to hear your take on it and what else you do to make it stand out and be really fun and pretty. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this edit along. Leave me comments. I'll be glad to do these more often or even once a month. if you find it helpful to edit with me. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.